online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Luckily, it's not the end of the world, because this is the Limitless after show. This is episode 17, Close Encounters. We had a little extraterrestrial flair this episode. It's pretty good. Before we get into it, I just want to remind all of you listeners and viewers out there to please rate and review the show. Comment on YouTube if you're there. Give us 5 stars on iTunes. Definitely keeps the shows and content all free for you guys. We love doing it, talking about the shows. We love interacting with you guys. It's a perfect way to promote the show. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm your host, JB Zimmerman. You can find me at Hey John Blake. Alongside the panel tonight with me is Amanda.
Hello, I'm Amanda. Find me at AmandaFTA31 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I'm happy to be back.
And I'm Frank Maiorana, and you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Go Frank M, and we're happy to have you back, Amanda.
Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, we're full panel, full strength again.
Finally.
That's right.
Yeah, which is a good episode for that. We got the family elements we were talking so much about. There's obviously blackout, quarantine, a whole bunch of good stuff. But yeah, let's get into it. I mean, I know there's a quick little procedural thing in the beginning up top. I just want to get out of the way. The sketch artist, just kind of for fun. I thought it was a nice little flair that he could draw really fast too. Kind of just reconnecting. I mean, initially I thought it was kind of a throwaway thing, but it's nice that they have those kind of tidbits that connect, his abilities to how smart he is. Like, if you were kind of like a machine thinking like a computer, like you can do some of those things. We attribute that to being a great artist, but it's also kind of the speed. He is sort of a computer in a lot of ways.
And he seems to be killing his free time going out and solving more crimes. But I like that it wasn't just a procedural element. I thought it was a continuation of last week's episode where Brian finds out that Sands killed Rebecca's dad. And so he's doing anything that he can to keep his mind off of that topic.
Right.
He's avoiding her calls. He's going out and working with local police to solve crimes to just keep his mind off that very real and hurtful topic that he wants to stray away from with Rebecca. So an interesting way that he copes with it, but ultimately I thought an effective way because
right.
He ultimately doesn't tell her.
The coping is an interesting point you just brought up, Frank, because it is a drug that we kind of forget and remind ourselves about constantly. And it's really interesting to see him use it that way, like in a sort of traditional drug method to cope with his problems, to escape reality or like whatever he's dealing with, the harsh kind of dilemma he's in with Rebecca and Sands and this pickle of the FBI versus Eddie Mora.
And he even says later in the episode that he may be an addict.
Right.
He almost confesses to that.
Yeah, he admits to that,
which is a huge deal.
That whole argument between the two has been a long time coming, and I really liked that scene because it was just unvarnished truth that Brian was delivering to her, because so far it's sort of been one-sided. Brian is looked at as the child, and he's treated with handlers. And you know what? Brian shot back this episode, and I kind of like that. You know what, Rebecca? This is benefiting you too, that he can take this pill and solve all these cases with her. And he makes some very good points about having frustrating police work where she's not solving all the crimes, and now she is. So you know what, you need this too just as much as he does. So I like that he made that point. It was unexpected, and I like to be surprised in this show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you guys were both spot on that. It was so interesting to think about Rebecca's addiction and how it's connected to NZT. I mean, even though she's not the one taking it directly, she is, I guess, ipso facto an addict as well, because she is, constantly going after this. I mean, you can define addict however you want, but I think it's when you lose control or it gets in the way of your normal business where you no longer
Your normal life.
Yeah. And in that sense, I think she is. I mean, she is marathon calling him. She's not she's a very smart person, but it's become such a routine now for her that she, I guess she recuses herself somewhat, but I don't think she would have followed through with it. We see at the end there he left the note, and Brian actually takes the journey somewhere. But
we'll see next week.
Yeah, which we can discuss more in predictions and stuff.
Well, and one other thing I wanted to point out was that in this episode, the women that Brian places trust in all failed him this episode. Rebecca sent FBI into his apartment to search for the NZT pills. Rachel betrayed his trust and told his mom all about what went on when Mr. Sands came over and spilled all the beans. And then his mom tells him he can't come over anymore because he has this job. It was a very interesting plot, a theme that I think can go missed to the average viewer, because now he goes and at the end of the episode we get an indication that he's going to seek out Piper, who was the one woman that he could truly trust in all this because they're in the same position. So I thought that was an interesting point, something I noticed and wanted to point out.
Very interesting point
Very
on
interesting.
National Women's Day.
International Women's Day.
International Women's Day, and they're all failing. They should have aired this a week later, so that they wouldn't have that.
But they were all strong women in the episode.
True. No, I mean this episode was.
That's not a commentary on women. I'm just saying.
No.
Right. No. It's just interesting.
He almost
timing.
He almost fell to rock bottom from what I saw.
Yeah.
Right.
Like when those people deserted him, and even his father. I think his father saying this is between you and your mother really hit him hard and really almost. This is as down as I've seen Brian.
I'll disagree with you about the dad though, because he doesn't tell his wife. He keeps a secret from her. Finch Sr., Dennis. Dennis keeps the secret from Marie, and Marie says, in 45 years of marriage, no, he's never kept a secret from me, and this one thing he is keeping from me. So I think that to me rang as a tremendous amount of strength in the relationship between Brian and his dad, especially when Brian entrusted him with these secrets that he told him about.
I just thought when the mom said, you're not welcome in our house anymore, that the father, I just wanted him to say something.
Yeah.
But I guess he can meet his dad in other places, but that, getting kicked out of your house, your childhood home.
Yeah, that's
rock bottom.
That to me was just too much. I think that they would have, in reality, handled that situation a little bit differently, especially the dad knowing him being a very strong father that he's put out there. Everything that we've seen has laid it down where he has been a very powerful force within the family unit, and for him to just sit there and say nothing and let it happen when he knows that the situation is different. And I don't think that misunderstanding would be allowed to last for too long. I get people get heated. The mom finding drugs of any kind would be upset and disappointed and a whole list of things. And that may create an atmosphere where you wouldn't want to communicate right then, or would have to leave or something for a short period of time. I don't think it'd be enough towards a full journey on. We don't know yet how long Brian is going to be gone, how far away he's going to go, but it seems like the nature of what he's actually doing, I think, is something where you could easily say something about it without revealing too much. He is, bound by some confidentiality agreements.
Do you think Finch's mom overreacted? This is for both of you.
I do.
Do you think, Amanda, that she overreacted?
I think you can't mess with a mom finding drugs in your sons. pants or wherever.
Well, she
it's
shouldn't technically find them.
Well,
Rachel.
true,
She
Rachel
kicked him. My point being, she's kicking him out of their house and saying, "You can't come back here."
Well,
anymore.
I think it's because he's done these things one too many times.
Okay.
It's not, you know what I mean? It's not like this is the first time she's ever found something like this. She even said, when you were younger, we found pot in your jeans or whatever, and you've always been that kid that's kind of been, a slacker or whatever. So I think this was the final straw for her.
Yeah, I think she.
How can you
she
not
definitely
overreact? You don't even know what the drug is.
Right, but that's my point. Is she overreacted to the point of not even knowing? Like, what if it was like an Advil?
She didn't even want to hear it. She didn't want to hear an explanation.
I mean, like
anyone.
You can infer that it's not as harmless as Advil, but that's what I mean. She was so angry that she blocked out even him saying what it was, which he could have just been like, it's actually.
Well, she couldn't get it. She also couldn't get out of her husband. So that's probably a factor that she,
Right.
she's like trying to get this man who she's been married for 45 years
Yeah,
to tell her something and he won't.
I totally blame the dad somewhat, although I think he may have made a deal with Brian specifically about keeping it between them. So if he felt that it wasn't,
she also has a
his
daughter
place,
that she thinks is like in trouble because she's
I know.
witnessing somebody, a federal agent with the thing coming out of his thigh.
Rachel
Wait.
is.
Just saying.
Before we go on, remember that Brian hired his dad as his attorney. So that's why Dennis didn't reveal the secrets.
Good call.
His attorney-client
call.
privilege. So just remember that. But
No,
keep going.
that is a very good, very good reinforcement for why he was so silent. Because it definitely seemed out of character that he'd be like, nah, well, you're gonna have to ask your son.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what? No, these are drugs. You know something about it. Like,
Exactly.
say something.
Yeah.
And Brian really couldn't reveal anything, especially with Mike and Ike in the background.
Yeah, Mike and Ike. But he could definitely say, hey, this is a controlled substance that I'm using with the FBI's supervision. Like, that, I think that would be enough to...
Could he, though?
Well, I mean, that's not saying anything. She found them. Mike picked up the drugs and put it in his pocket.
That's true. So they knew that she knew something.
And they weren't, freaking out about it, so...
Yeah.
I think that there was enough there where he could have said that, just like, it's with the FBI, it's supervised, it is controlled, by them, and it's not harmful to me. Like, those three things, just that handful of information doesn't give anything away, but at the same time, it would, I think, calm your nerves, so she didn't want to disown Brian.
It's like those
anymore.
moments in television where you feel like, come on, just say something, please, just say something.
Yeah. But at that point, she didn't want to hear any of it at all. So
Yeah.
say nothing and get out of my house. Which Amanda, I respect your opinion. I think that...
I just don't think she overreacted.
I think she overreacted. And, I mean, this is your firstborn son, and you're telling him to stay away. Why? Because he is performing a job for the FBI? I just think there's a lot of other reasons why you would kick someone out of your home.
Right.
And it made me think of Breaking Bad, really, when Jesse goes back to his parents' house and they find drugs, but it's actually his little brother's. But they kick him out anyway. It was an overreaction, and parents didn't see the truth in it. And I think that's kind of what's going on here. Is
my head went to Breaking Bad too.
it did? Okay, yeah. See,
absolutely. And that's why I was thinking, it's like one of those, he's that kid that is always kind of screwing up and is always that kid. So it's like the last straw.
Well,
that's a good point.
That kid is key. Because I think he's been working for the FBI for a long time, and he hasn't had an incident. Like, for her to go back to that place without any explanation, without and the FBI is still there. Like, Brian's obviously cognizant and not seeming high. I think it's a bit rash to treat him so coldly.
Yeah, but it leads to him taking an action that you and I are very happy about.
Oh, yes. Piper's back in the game,
He's gonna seek
Amanda.
out
You're
Piper.
excited about it. You are stoked.
I just can't believe you guys were right. I really thought she was going to be a one-time
Bring her on
character.
back.
I am. That's like my best prediction ever.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that
You get a gold star for that one.
I do. Thank you.
Have any of your predictions come true, Amanda?
Yeah. I don't know.
No, she doesn't know.
I have to go back and watch.
We did. I think it was a
teasing.
global prediction of getting the family back, which we did
Yes.
get. I want to talk a little bit about Rachel, because I don't know.
She's a
is
weasel.
not on my fan list.
She's
right
such
now.
a weasel.
Yeah, I don't like her.
Like
Worst.
you cannot.
The worst.
You cannot sell your brother out like
Yeah.
that. Who runs home and tells their mom everything like that? Especially between siblings, and I'm assuming these characters are 30 years old.
If you
or
guys
so.
recall, she came over to his house to smoke weed.
Yeah.
So it's not like she was
Well,
like
and
just there delivering flowers or like a birthday present.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
no, she was escaping her parents' house. She went over there for like some sibling bonding time and then completely betrayed him so hardly.
Yeah.
Like on many different levels. She was spying on him, saw like him grab something, investigated it, like rummaged through his stuff, found the drugs, told the mom about it, and like detailed everything that went down.
I was so mad at her for that. Shut up.
God.
Yeah.
What
And ask
are
your
you
brother
worst?
about the pills
Yeah.
first.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to your brother
Exactly.
first.
Exactly. She didn't even give him a chance. Like if he like blew her off, then I'd be like, I mean, still kind of a B move, but
Yeah. At
You
least
know,
there would have been a
yeah.
hint toward her action that she
Right.
was legitimately concerned about Brian, that this was something that was on her mind, but it wasn't. It was a total shock and a surprise to him.
Yeah.
And which really weakens the character.
right. And for her to like have the other things she did hooked up with with Ike.
Yeah.
It's like there are no redeeming qualities really. I mean, it's not like they're dating. I'm not saying that like that was a completely like horrible move or character flaw, but for her to do that with Brian's work colleague, it kind of makes it awkward for him. So that there are a lot of inconsiderations that she did all at one time, and it's like, what's good? Like you have nothing good.
Yeah. When he was,
I hate you right now.
She's a bit spineless. She just seems like she doesn't really have a backbone.
That's exactly
You
true.
know?
And even though they cut away at the end of the episode when Ike comes up and says, "Hey, can you describe who we all know is Mr. Sands?"
Right.
They cut away. She looks down and cuts away. There is no doubt in my mind she told him
She told him.
about
Yeah.
what Mr. Sands looks
She
like.
almost craves attention, almost as if Brian's having a cooler life than her, so she wants to get in on it, or she wants the attention to be back on her.
Wow.
Like that's how I just feel
Yeah.
like she's a little spineless little
Hey,
attention.
don't sugarcoat it. Tell us how
person.
you really feel about it. Get in
I
there.
don't like her.
No, I
Now I have to
Hey,
like
we're on the
Piper
same-
again,
we're
so
on the
that
same
now I have to
team.
hate somebody else with blonde short hair.
We are moving Rachel to the bottom of our
she
list.
she is definitely like my least favorite character just because she like it seems so unnecessary what she was doing, blatantly stabbing Brian in the back several times. Like she had no remorse for it. It wasn't even like she was hiding. Well, her mom was like, "Oh, you seem like you're acting weird. Like, is it about that guy?" And she's like, "Nope, it's about these drugs I found in Brian's like record files."
Yes.
Like, what? Oh, and there's also this secret agent guy that came over bleeding. Like, what?
And the way
No.
she treated Ike, I didn't like either.
I mean, yeah, even okay.
Yeah.
Like
Sort
she
of
could have
standoffish.
at least text him back. I don't
Yeah.
know. And then she gets
What
in
is
the
this?
van.
Good
and then,
call.
And she gets in
Thank
the van,
you.
and then she goes she like runs to the back like a little rat or mouse. I don't like her. I do not like her. She's like a little rodent, that Rachel. She's like,
Yeah, I forgot
Not a
about
fan.
how she just left Ike hanging.
Yeah.
Just no response.
I like Ike.
have the courtesy to say you're not interested or you're something.
Ike's a nice guy, good-looking guy, got a
good
job.
job. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on the
exactly.
same
We
page.
know exactly
We're
what
on
we're
the
looking
same
for.
page. I like Ike. I don't like Rachel.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yep.
She
Definitely
took a
team
step down
Ike.
this episode and was previously somebody that was kind of redeemable. Enjoyed seeing her presence on the show. Now just a total gutless move on her part and sold Brian out. And I think in real life, really, it's kind of a logic problem for the episode because as a sibling, if I notice something about my brother, I'd go to him first and ask about it and not
Right.
run and tell my parents. As a 30-year-old guy, I'm not going to go to my parents and tattletale on my brother.
Right.
And I'm assuming these characters are about the same age as we are, late 20s, early 30s, living by themselves in New York. So it just didn't ring true. It rang false for me in a strange moment. But it turned out well because we're going to get Piper back, and it seems like Brian's about to go on a great adventure here, exploring the moral organization and hopefully a way out for him.
Definitely. We'll get to the way out. Before we do, I just want to wrap up a few things from this episode. Obviously, the blackout, Brian figures out is more wind related. That was kind of a cool twist, I guess. Which led them to the power plant and all of these like microorganism bacteria that feed on electrons, which is kind of cool. Tying back to the janitor that we found in the beginning of the episode with the glowing on himself with the black light. Kind of cool. I mean, we've seen elements like that where they play with color and things on the screen that only he can see or know that's there. How'd you guys feel about that theme, the bacteria and all that stuff?
I love it. I think it's so interesting that they come up with all these cool things every week.
Yeah, do you think anything like that exists?
I know. We got to do our research. I don't know.
We do. You have to Google it.
I thought it was an interesting visual element, and that's what those scenes are about for me. I think the main attraction that I have to the show is the story itself. I like last week the comic book integration in throughout the show. And actually, one of our users out there commented on our YouTube page. This is Milos Pantic. He said that he last week's episode was his favorite episode because I love comic books so much, and I like Tarantino, and the blend of these storytelling elements was perfect. So I agree with him there that we have some interesting ways to tell stories that these creators are inventing as the season has gone along. I can think of some really funny puppets that Brian made, and he makes interesting diagrams, even from the beginning of the show.
Yeah, he had one in this episode. It was kind of like a menu that would like be on the street when you're passing a restaurant. They have like a
Have you seen these scientists?
Yes, exactly.
Well, he kind of did the same thing with the undercover agent. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before.
The week before.
So he had that on. She's speeding by and stops. That was something you didn't quite believe.
Well, no, for how he was using it was a little different because he was just standing like on the side of the road, and I felt like that was a little bit more hit or miss, like in terms of how he was spending his time. But the use in this episode I thought was a little bit more accurate because he was just like creating this thing in the office and was like, here, it was kind of a giveaway to someone else. I think he that makes more sense for me because he would have more time in the office being sort of in the Brian HQ with a lot of time on his hands and would be able to do funny things to embarrass the other agents. It kind of reminded me of Die Hard 3 where John McClane has to wear a sign similar, but obviously a different message is written on it.
Yeah, I mean, the visual elements are really cool. I thought the power outage element was not utilized to its fullest potential. I think nowadays, I can remember that there was a great power outage in, I think, 2003 in the Midwest, and I was living in Michigan at the time, and I experienced that. It was 2-3 days with no power.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we were sleeping with candles on at night, and we had to keep the refrigerator closed all the way, and people couldn't go out into the streets because all the traffic lights had no power. So I thought there was the power outage could have been used a little bit more effectively in terms of the fear that it creates, especially now with terrorism threats and a lot of other scary things going on in the world. I thought it would have added urgency to this episode to get Brian to solve this quicker, because when they showed up to the power plant, things seemed pretty easy. There was traffic moving on the streets. There was actually a couple of stoplights that were working.
Right.
So they forgot to color those out. But again, I thought that there just wasn't enough urgency to that storyline. Which could have been there because you can have people freaking out the biggest city in the world with no power.
Yeah, I was going to say Manhattan is crazy.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because I feel like they could have utilized it a little bit. I mean, conveniently there were only parts of the city that were in darkness, and other parts like the FBI office was not affected.
Exactly.
So yeah, I wish they would have played a little bit with the elements of a blackout. I think there's a lot of creative things they could have done. Solving crimes by candlelight, being even in a building without power, I think is scary, and especially a place like New York, where it's all high rises, would be just like a labyrinth in the dark.
Yeah.
Obviously there was the New York City blackout many years ago, so I think they could have drawn a lot from that and had some fun, at least for a few minutes of screen time.
Yeah, especially nowadays, we are so dependent upon power, and for our phones, for our computers, for the way that we interact. I read this disaster story one time where if we were completely without power for forever, how doomed we would all be as a society, because we don't grow our own food, we don't provide, we don't make our own clothes. I mean, we buy everything, and it's all dependent upon power. So when you set up this story element, there's this amazing potential there that just wasn't utilized to its full stability.
I almost forgot about it. I remember in the last scene when he came and sat back down in his apartment, and he tries to smoke, and then he doesn't. And then when the lights came on, I felt like, oh yeah, there was a blackout. I feel like they almost lost that plot line throughout the story.
Right.
Because we were too focused as an audience member on other things. So it was a little got a little forgotten.
The power outage could be a show unto itself. If you're going to go that direction, and you're going to say, okay, we're going to have a power outage be a focus of an episode, there's a lot to explore there. Now, I prefer the family storyline, the going after Piper and interacting with the characters themselves. But I thought there was an interesting possibility there for this one.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's countless ways that it can go in the dark, because the possibilities are endless. It's a playground in New York.
Yeah.
But for them to, I don't know, I was just kind of thinking how this bacteria worked.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a lot of fail-safes that we as a society have. If one power plant doesn't work, like where you reroute energy, because again, like you said, Frank, it's so essential. But I would have loved to see some of the elements of just a temporary blackout, or like in the area would have affected them, like his phone running out of battery, like if that was sort of gave some urgency to the pace of things. I think
that's a
cool.
great point. His phone was always fully charged throughout this episode. He never had a problem with it. Group texting his family, and declining Rebecca's calls, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's just not believable.
I mean, of course.
No, it's not. I'm serious.
I mean, my phone is at 17% at the end of every day. So, I mean, by the next day, your phone's going to be gone.
Right.
I will say though, the creators obviously know what they're doing. There's been a bunch of stories that came out today that are strongly hinting that Limitless is going to be renewed for season 2.
Nice. Well, yeah. I mean, last episode, I really liked. They were definitely bigger story elements. I mean, we got some fun new stuff, and also they touched on a lot of backstory before Sands. Now bringing back Brian's family, which we've predicted time and time again. I thought it was cool. But we still had the fun new characters, and I thought it was an interesting twist where the big bad scientist not only made a bet for $1 to create all this thing, but he actually wasn't behind it. Usually with these procedural things, it gets a little too predictable in that, like, the head guy is always, like, the corrupt one, like, behind the scenes, like, oh, he controlled it all, how did you find me? Like, you meddling kids.
Right.
But this time, it was nice because even he was duped. I love the dynamic between the two scientists that were on Brian's board, betting $1. It's kind of like trading places. But it was cool that even the assistant that's highly overworked and underpaid was the culprit. I thought that was kind of a cool little twist, and she's a woman. International Women's Day.
Go women.
Well, yeah, I think that's obviously a coincidence and isn't connected, but it was interesting to note that it's such a huge female presence in this episode. The ones you mentioned, Frank, even Nas saying all those things in that whole press conference, like she was basically saying this is exactly what it is. Obviously not according to Brian,
Rebecca,
but Rebecca and this EMT posing research assistant.
Yes. Yeah, and one other big element about this show, a big plot point that happened this week, was Rebecca requesting off of handling Brian.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys think that she was serious about that?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. I thought after their argument, that was sort of it for Rebecca. Brian did lie to her, so let's be fair to Rebecca.
Right, that was
Brian
number
lied
one.
to her,
Yep.
but at the same time, he is the reason why she has become so successful.
Right. And she went behind his back to find the pills. Like, she had his house raided. Like, literally.
That would make anybody mad.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're all here right now,
right,
and I'm like, hey, guess what, JB? I'm raiding your apartment right now.
Yeah, and to the point of finding things hidden in record, like,
yes,
covers.
So they went through everything. That's the point in that, right? They searched everything without a warrant, by the way. I mean, that's kind of bad.
Well, I'm sure he signed a bunch of stuff.
I'm sure he did
saying
it when
that
he's
she can do whatever she
and
wants.
who's he going to go to complain about it?
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Anymore, maybe.
But she betrayed his
line.
trust. She betrayed his trust.
He betrayed hers.
That's true, and he lied to her. But is the appropriate response to send a search team into his apartment? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
It's too much.
Cray.
Let's look at Rebecca, though. She has a father who kind of betrayed her. She had a father that she couldn't trust. So now she has this guy that she has in her life that, maybe she's getting a little too attached to, and she's afraid of that, knowing Rebecca. So she probably wants to distance herself. And that's how, when I watched that scene between her and Brian when they were in the bubble, I kind of felt like Brian was kind of pushing her away. Like, yes, it was great to see him standing up to her, but I also felt like he was pushing her away so that he didn't have to deal with lying to her. Yeah. I almost feel as though Brian, and in that scene, in that moment, he, have you guys ever had an experience where you say something to someone that's so mean and you realize it's just because you wanted to just get yourself out of that situation, like a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever, like you just want to get out of it? I've done that. I feel like that's what Brian did. He pushed her away.
The point you just made was absolutely brilliant, and I think you're spot on with that because you're exactly right. He is pushing her away at the same time that he's throwing it back in her face about who is truly benefiting here. He's not the only one. He is benefiting, of course, but so is she. Yeah. And he never made that point before. But I agree with you in that. The forcefulness with which he delivers that speech is intended to go beyond just making the point.
Right. It was almost a defense mechanism so that he knew, who knew how long they were going to be in that bubble together. So he knew that I feel like subconsciously he knew that he had to get her to stop talking to him or else she was going to start to ask him questions that he didn't want to answer.
Yeah.
No, that's true. I mean, do you guys think, I agree with you for the record, he was obviously distancing himself, by not answering the calls, being unresponsive, lying. Having said that, I mean, do you think there is something on Brian's side? I feel like he might be feeling a little taken advantage of. If he is, I see a lot of truth in the fact that even if he is an addict of NCT, Rebecca is sort of a indirect addict of the same thing. Is that kind of being abused in terms of their relationship, where he is used as one of her assets, as one of her tools? I mean, obviously he's under her jurisdiction, but I feel like it's not an equal 50-50 partnership. Right. We can argue if it should be or not, but at the same time, they are friends, they are peers. So is there some type of mutual respect thing also where...
Yeah, and remember at the end of the episode, she walks back into his office, presumably for a reconciliation.
Right.
And Brian did say, I can't remember if he said, I'm sorry in that note.
I believe he did.
Yeah, I think he said he was sorry, so he apologized there too. So I think there is Well, I'll save it. I'm saving it. I'm saving it because that's my prediction. I know it's gonna be a good one.
I mean, I think. Well,
I think we're there. Let's go into it. Unless do you have anything?
No. Let's do my predictions that are
put
never
it
gonna
all
come
into
true.
predictions. All right, Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you go
fire
first.
away.
let me just
Do
take it. I think Brian and Rebecca will be reconciled next episode. He is going on his journey to find Piper. That much we know. But
Yes.
I also, thank goodness, she is great. We love Piper, and
Good stuff.
he's going to learn a lot more about Eddie Mora next episode. And I think this is where we're going for the last 5 episodes of the first season. We're going to learn a lot more about Eddie Mora and the truth behind him, and if Brian is going to have an avenue to get out of taking NZT all the time, and or not depending on the shot to make sure that he can keep taking it. But I think Rebecca and Brian will be reconciled. He'll reach out to her while he's out on the road and tracking Piper down. And I also think they'll sleep together too. It's just a little side
That's really all
prediction.
I care about.
That's all I really care about.
fine.
That's okay.
It's fine.
I saved it to the end.
Nice.
My prediction is I just wonder who's going to find him first wherever he's going or ending up. Is it going to be Sans or is it going to be Rebecca? And that's going to tell a lot about where the story is going. Because if it's Rebecca, then I'm kind of still on board with the Brecca-ness of the world. But if it's Sans, then I feel like we're going to be going on sort of like an Eddie Mora kind of trail roller coaster, and Rebecca might still just be like a subplot line, because it's like, where are they going to go with that? If he's with Piper, Rebecca's got to be looking for him all
Right.
the time.
Yeah, I
So
think.
my question is who finds him first, but someone's going to find him.
And Piper, you mean? Like both of
He
them?
can't just think going over the backpack and a passport is going to...
And a
the
bunch
FBI
of fake
and
cash.
Eddie Mora's
And
not gonna
only
find him.
2 pills? Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it's enough.
Well, I think that what that means is it's going to be a very short trip. It's going to be 2 days.
Yeah.
Maximum,
And yeah,
maybe
not even a
3.
full episode, you're saying.
Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
Interesting. I'm going to go the other way. I think we're going to get a full episode of Brian on the lam.
Okay.
Just because, I want something fresh. I want to put that into the universe. I think I hope that they hook up, Brian and Piper.
Yes.
I just really want to see a dynamic where there's 2 people on NCT. I mean, we've seen Eddie Mora kind of come in, but he's sort of the godfather of it all, and
Right.
he's very like Yoda status, just like dropping down knowledge. I would love to see Brian work with someone in tandem on NCT. Like, to see that dynamic would be super cool, and figure out like how they can use each other's strengths to figure something out. Whether that's like some type of crazy communication from like 2 faraway places that like, through some I don't even know means, but I feel like there's a creative way that they can work together that normal humans wouldn't be able to, like some type of higher communication or something, noticing, like leaving little breadcrumbs for each other to find. I think that'd be a really cool episode dynamic for them to follow. I do think Rebecca's gonna track them down. I don't think she's gonna let it. I think her addiction is almost stronger than Brian's is, and she's gonna want to find him, not just because she needs the success part, but because she really cares about Brian too, and because it's twofold like that. It is a bigger part for her, and I think she's gonna need to reconcile that stat. One moment I noticed this episode in the beginning when she found Brian, they did this like slow-mo like steam coming from the street walk where her like hair was blowing in the wind.
Yes.
Brecca.
Yeah. So I mean, they are definitely planting unmistakable seeds for that long term. Short term, I definitely want to see Piper back in the game. But it would be great because she is such a powerful personality, presence. If the relationship ended up in a way, either if she like did die or maybe just like had her own mission to go on. I don't want her to die. To be.
I do. I'm just kidding.
I bet you do, man.
I do
you
not.
you
I'm
and
just
Rachel,
kidding.
you're like getting them in your sights, right? Rachel
I
and
don't
Piper.
want anyone to die. I don't want Rachel to die.
I kind of want Rachel to die. I mean.
Wow, we went down a dark path all of a sudden.
You took us there.
I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to.
I thought you'd be all aboard that. I thought you'd be like, killing her.
Yeah, but no.
No?
I don't want. No.
All right.
I'm not that much of a terrible person.
Her hate for Rachel is not limitless.
Ooh, touche.
Oh.
Thank you.
I wanted to say
I'll
the
be here all
blackout.
night.
Well, we will have to wait and see. Till then, where can the people find you guys?
Thanks for so much for tuning in, everybody. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Go Frank M.
And you can find me at AmandaFTA31 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much.
Awesome. You guys can find me at Hey John Blake on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.